Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you're here expecting a fairy tale, I'm sorry to disappoint you. This isn't a love story. This isn't even a revenge story. This is what happens when a man gives up everything he is for someone who was never honest in the first place, and then quietly disappears. And yeah, I was that man. 3 days ago, I stood across the street from my old house. The one with the peeling porch paint and wind chimes that always drove me insane. Still there. She's still there too. She came out holding a grocery bag in one hand and talking on her phone with the other. And she laughed, that same fake, overcompensating laugh she used whenever she wanted something. She didn't even look up, didn't pause, didn't feel anything shift in the universe. Because to her, I don't exist anymore. And yet, not long ago, she was my whole life. My reason for getting up. My excuse for enduring things no man should have to endure. You know what's worse than being betrayed? Not being noticed after. But let me go back. I didn't leave her out of spite. I didn't vanish because I wanted drama. I vanished because I found out something so quietly devastating. It took the air out of my lungs and made the world look like a bad photograph. Drained, distant, unrecognizable. We had a son. Or at least, I thought we did. Grady. That was the name she picked. Said it was strong, rare, unforgettable. I remember holding him the first night home from the hospital. She was asleep, or pretending to be. I was in the hallway, pacing, terrified I'd break him just by blinking too hard. But I was happy. Terrified but happy. I had no idea that by the time I taped his name above the crib, I was already living in someone else's lie. I should have seen the signs. The way she double-checked every envelope. How she insisted on using her own insurance for the hospital stuff. How she freaked out when I suggested a paternity test. Not because I didn't trust her, but because the hospital offered it for free and I thought, why not? Peace of mind. She screamed at me that night, said I humiliated her, slept in the guest room, didn't talk to me for 3 days. I should have pressed harder, but I caved. Like always, I caved because I wanted her to love me again. Like she used to, or like I thought she used to. Turns out the baby wasn't mine. Turns out I was a placeholder. Turns out she planned to keep me around until the real father came back. And when he didn't, well, I was the safe bet. And so, one night, with no big meltdown, no goodbye kiss, and no second bag, I walked out the back door with nothing but a hoodie and my ID. And for 6 years, no one knew where I went. Until now. Because somehow, she found me. And I have no idea what she wants. The moment I saw the email, my stomach flipped. Not because of what it said, it was only one sentence, but because of who it was from. A name I hadn't seen in 6 years. One I had tried to forget. The subject line read, "Please, just 5 minutes. The body? I know where you are. We need to talk. It's about Grady." Grady. That name hadn't touched my ears in so long. It hit like a cold slap across the face. I stared at it, frozen, my finger hovering over the delete button. I should have erased it. I should have blocked her again. But instead, I kept rereading it, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less painful. She found me. I had moved 3 states away, changed my last name. I lived in a rented studio above a hardware store and worked nights cleaning medical labs. No social media, no forwarding address, no digital footprint. I was a ghost by choice. So how the hell did Delaney track me down? I didn't respond, of course. That night, I barely slept. I kept waiting for a knock at the door that never came. I stared at my phone until dawn. I even called off work just to pace the apartment like a nervous animal. The next evening, I found her. I know how that sounds, like I'm the one who gave in. But I didn't go to her. I watched from across the parking lot of the hotel she had checked into. I don't know what I was hoping to see. Maybe guilt on her face. Maybe regret. Maybe nothing. But she looked normal. Too normal. Like she hadn't shattered my life into 1,000 bleeding pieces. Eventually, curiosity won. Or maybe it was weakness. I emailed back. I didn't say much. Just told her I'd meet her at the diner near the old bus depot. I chose the most public place I could think of. Not because I feared her, but because I feared myself. What if I broke down? What if I forgave her? She was already there when I arrived. Same booth as always. Same cup of black coffee. Same smirk when she saw me. "Marshall," she said like it was still 2019. I didn't sit. I just stared at her and asked, "What do you want?" She folded her hands like she'd rehearsed this. "I just need closure," she whispered. "For Grady." I laughed. Quietly. Bitterly. "For Grady," I repeated. "You mean the kid that was never mine? The one you let me raise while you looked me in the eye every day and pretended I was his father?" She winced, but only for a second. She didn't deny it. She didn't even apologize. She just said something I wasn't ready for. "He doesn't know. He still thinks you're his dad." And just like that, my world tilted again. Because somehow, despite everything, despite her betrayal, her silence, her lies, the idea that Grady still thought of me as his father hit harder than anything else she could have said. I turned and walked out without another word. But her voice followed me to the parking lot. "He's been asking questions. He wants to find you. If you don't talk to him, I will." That was the night I realized this wasn't about closure. It was about control. And she still had it. But not for long. I told myself I wouldn't open the envelope. I told myself that before I even got back to my apartment. I left the diner furious, shaking, half wishing I had never answered her email. But she had slipped it into my jacket pocket when I wasn't paying attention, the way only Delaney could. No words, no warning, just a manila envelope that changed everything. Inside were 3 things. A recent photo of Grady, a handwritten letter in a child's scrawled handwriting, and a drawing, him holding my hand. 6 years had passed, but his face, it hadn't changed that much. Same round cheeks, same wide eyes. And that stupid drawing, it crushed me in a way Delaney never could. He had written me and Daddy at the top, with our stick figures smiling like the world had never cracked in half. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at it for what felt like hours. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I didn't even move. I kept hearing her words in my head. "He still thinks you're his dad." And then something worse, "He's been asking questions." My first instinct was to burn it all, the letter, the drawing, the past. But instead, I stuffed it in the drawer where I keep my lease agreement and an old watch that doesn't work anymore. And for a few days I convinced myself that was it. Story over. Ghost mode back on. But the letter? It haunted me. Not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. It didn't ask why I left. It didn't blame me. It just said, "Hi Daddy. Are you still working at the train station? I miss your pancakes. Mom said I might see you soon. I hope so. Love, Grady." He remembered the train station story I made up to explain my job. He remembered the pancakes I used to make with too much vanilla in the batter. And that was when I cracked. I wrote back. Nothing dramatic. Just a simple postcard. And signed, "No return address." I told him I was okay. That I missed him too. That he was brave and smart and kind. I didn't call myself Dad. Couldn't. But I didn't say I wasn't either. A week later, another letter arrived. This time, typed. I knew it wasn't from Grady the moment I opened it. It was Delaney. She wrote, "You're making this worse. You can't dip in and out of his life like a ghost. Either be in it or stay gone." She was right, but not for the reasons she thought. Because the real reason I disappeared wasn't just the DNA test. It wasn't just the betrayal or the lies or even the shame. It was what I almost did after I found out. There's something I've never told anyone. Not even now. And if I'm going to confess, I might as well start here. The night I left, I didn't plan to survive. I stood on a bridge in the freezing rain with the test results soaked through in my pocket, thinking maybe the only way to stop the pain was to stop everything. I don't remember how long I stood there, but it was long enough for a stranger to pull over and ask if I was okay. That stranger saved my life. And now, 6 years later, the boy I once called mine is reaching for a ghost. And I have no idea if I should let him catch me. Because if I show up again, if I let him see me, I won't survive losing him twice. I didn't plan on replying again. After that last postcard, I thought I could close the door and pretend it was just a lapse. A one-time mistake. But the damage was already done. A week after Delaney's typed letter, I came home to find an envelope taped to my front door. No postage, no name, just my apartment number written in thick black marker. My heart nearly stopped. Inside were more drawings, more letters. But this time, one of them wasn't from Grady. It was from him, the man she had betrayed me with, the biological father. I knew because the letter was signed Cal, a name I'd only heard once, 6 years ago, when I saw it flash on her phone screen in the middle of the night and asked who it was. She said it was a client, said I was paranoid, said she was tired of defending herself. I let it go like I always did. I remember nodding like an idiot, swallowing the doubt like poison, because I wanted to be the calm husband, the trusting one, the good guy. And now the man she lied about was writing me like we were old friends. His letter was short, almost too casual. Hey man, I know this is complicated. I'm not trying to start anything. But I figured since you were the one who raised him all those early years, you should know that Grady asks about you constantly. He's a good kid. We've told him some things, but not everything. It might be time you helped him fill in the blanks. We've told him some things. What does that even mean? I sat at my kitchen table gripping that letter so hard the paper nearly tore. My hands were shaking. I wasn't angry, not exactly. I was hollow. I tried to imagine Cal teaching Grady how to ride a bike. Cal showing up to parent-teacher conferences. Cal sitting in my chair at the head of the dinner table. That man got to live the life I built, the one he stole, and now he had the audacity to act like this was some civil co-parenting arrangement? I thought about writing back, telling him to stay away from me, telling him he had no right. But what would that change? He was the biological father. He had the legal connection. And I had what? A few memories and a broken last name? And yet, for all the bitterness I felt toward Cal, part of me was also afraid. Not of him, but of what Grady didn't know. If he believed I was his real father this entire time, how long had they been lying to him? Or worse, what if they hadn't been lying, and Delaney had told him I just abandoned them? That night I went for a walk. No phone, no wallet. Just a hoodie and the cold air. I found myself outside the elementary school down the block. Closed for the night, but the swings still creaked in the wind. I sat on one like some pathetic adult trying to feel something. I was so deep in thought I didn't hear the voice behind me until it was too late. Marshall! I turned slowly, and my blood turned to ice. It was Delaney. She looked different. Older, yes, but calmer. She didn't smile. She didn't scream. She just stepped closer and held out her phone. On the screen was a video paused. Grady's face filled the frame. I told him, she said, her voice low. I told him everything. He wants to meet you. I stared at the screen, unable to speak. And then she said something I never expected. But there's something you don't know about Cal. Something I should have told you before you walked out that night. Her eyes dropped to the ground, and for the first time in years, I saw something that almost resembled guilt. Cal's not in Grady's life anymore. Not really. He left 6 months ago. He was never built for it. He's gone. Just like that, the man I'd been silently hating was no longer part of the picture. And now, the boy I once called my son was looking for someone to fill a space I thought I lost forever. I didn't say yes. Not right away. After Delaney told me Cal had walked out, I just stood there, frozen between rage and disbelief. She tried to explain how Cal had wanted to be involved at first but slowly distanced himself once the reality of parenting set in. I didn't care. I didn't want to hear about the man who replaced me failing at the role I never truly had a chance to fulfill. It didn't make me feel better. It made everything worse. Because now there was a vacancy again, and everyone was looking at me like I should just step back into a life I never got to say goodbye to. Delaney kept pushing. She said Grady was old enough to understand, that he was asking real questions, that he remembered things only I would have taught him, how to tie his laces with bunny ears, how to whistle through cupped hands. She said he still looked at every passing train and asked if I was riding in the engine. It broke something in me, so after 3 days of radio silence, I agreed. Just one meeting, neutral ground, no pressure. I told her I wasn't making promises, that I was doing this for him, not for her. She said she understood. But her eyes told a different story. They always did. We met at a quiet park about 40 minutes outside the city. Delaney stayed in the car. I watched Grady step out alone, clutching a book to his chest like a shield. He had grown taller, his face thinner now, but I recognized the way he looked down when he was nervous. Like the sidewalk held all the answers he didn't know how to ask for. I sat on the bench first. I didn't move toward him. I let him come to me, even though my heart was pounding so loud I could barely think. When he finally looked up, our eyes met, and something inside me cracked open. "Hi," he said. Just that. Nothing else. I swallowed hard. "Hey, Grady." He sat beside me slowly, like he was afraid I'd disappear again if he moved too fast. A long silence hung between us. Then he opened the book he was holding. It was a photo album. One of the cheap ones, the kind with sticky pages and wrinkled plastic. "I made this," he said, "from the pictures Mom still had." Inside were printed out photos of us. Old ones. Me holding him in the hospital. Me asleep on the couch with him on my chest. Us carving pumpkins. A blurry shot of me trying to teach him how to skip rocks. "I don't remember everything," he said, "but I remember how safe it felt." That's when the tears started. Not from him, from me. I tried to hold them back, but they came anyway. I didn't even realize I'd taken the book from his hands until I felt my fingers trembling against the plastic pages. "I thought you left because of me," he said quietly. "Because I wasn't good enough." Those words will haunt me for the rest of my life. I turned to him so fast I almost startled him. "No, Grady. Never. You were the only thing that made sense. I left because I didn't know how to stay in something that was built on lies." He looked confused, and I instantly regretted saying it that way. He was just a kid. He didn't need the full picture. Not yet. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong." He nodded slowly. "Do you still make pancakes?" That was the moment I lost it completely. I laughed and cried at the same time. One of those ugly, chest-racking sobs I hadn't let out in years. I nodded. "Yeah, I still do." He smiled then. Not a full smile, but enough. Then, just before we left, he said something that chilled me more than anything else that day. "Mom said you might come back, but she also said there's something you still don't know." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the same position for hours, staring at my front door, half expecting another envelope, another letter, another blow to the chest. Grady's last words echoed in my head like a warning I couldn't shake. "She also said there's something you still don't know." I wanted to believe it was something small. Maybe a detail about Cal. Maybe a moment from the past she had lied about that wouldn't matter anymore. But my gut told me different. And my gut had been right before, back when I ignored it. Back when I let love silence my instincts. I tried to distract myself. Cleaned the apartment, wiped down the baseboards, sorted a junk drawer I hadn't opened in 2 years. But nothing worked. By morning, I was unraveling. I finally broke and texted Delaney. "Me, what did you mean when you said there's something I don't know?" She replied almost instantly. "Delaney, I didn't mean for him to say that yet. Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Instead, I drove. No destination. Just miles of thinking and regretting. Eventually, I pulled into the grocery store parking lot. The same one where I used to wait in the car while she ran in for one thing and came out 45 minutes later with wine, magazines, and a fake smile. And somehow, sitting there, I knew I wasn't going to get peace unless I faced her head-on. So I drove to her house. It was the first time I'd been there since the night I left. It looked the same. Same chipped mailbox. Same ivy creeping up the porch columns. But something felt off. The curtains were different. The door had a new lock. There were no toys in the yard, no signs of a child living there. Just quiet. She opened the door before I could knock, like she'd been waiting. "I didn't expect you to just show up," she said, stepping aside. "I didn't expect to," I replied, walking in. The living room smelled like vanilla and lemon cleaner. Too clean, like someone had tried to erase something. I sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded, eyes fixed on hers. What don't I know? Delaney didn't sit. She paced, rubbing her arms like she was cold, even though the room was warm. Then she stopped, looked at me, and said something that made my entire body lock up. Grady isn't the only one who's not yours. I stared at her, unblinking. What does that mean? She walked to the mantel and picked up a framed photo. One I hadn't seen before. It was of us. From years ago. At the beach. She placed it in my hands. You remember this day? She asked. Yeah. You told me you were late. I was. That was the first time I thought I might be pregnant. But it wasn't yours then either. Felt like a punch to the chest. Wait, what? Are you saying? She nodded. There was another one. Before Grady. I had a miscarriage. I never told you because I knew it wasn't yours, and I thought it would kill you. Couldn't breathe. My mind was racing. All these years, I thought the betrayal started with Grady. I thought that was the moment everything cracked. But the truth had been poisoning the foundation long before I ever knew there was a fracture. How many lies are there, Delaney? I asked quietly. How many times did you look me in the eye and let me carry something that was never mine? She didn't answer. I stood to leave, but then she blurted, there's more. One of the reasons Cal left, it wasn't just the stress. He started asking questions. About you. About the timing. About why you disappeared. I froze. What are you saying? I think he thinks you're dangerous. I laughed, bitter and broken. And are you going to let Grady believe that too? No, she said. That's why I wanted to talk. I want to fix it. I want you to be part of his life again. But I didn't believe her. And I was starting to wonder if the truth she told me today was just another carefully crafted version of a lie she still needed me to live with. I wish I could say I left her house with answers. I didn't. I left with more questions and worse. I left with the feeling that the person I had once shared a bed, a future, and nearly a family with had never stopped manipulating me. The problem with liars is that even when they tell the truth, it still feels like bait. And something about the way Delaney told me about that lost pregnancy, about Cal, and even about Grady didn't sit right. It was like she was feeding me just enough to keep me engaged, but not enough to let me go. I sat in my car in front of her house for nearly 20 minutes after walking out. I didn't want to drive. I didn't want to go back to my empty apartment and wonder what twisted layer would unravel next. I watched her silhouette move behind the curtain, talking on the phone, pacing. She looked worried. Not guilty. Worried. That's when I started thinking. Why now? Why would she find me after all these years? Why not when Cal first left? Why not when Grady turned 5 and started asking questions? Why now, after I opened the door, after I showed up to meet Grady, after I gave her that small opening? So I made a choice. Pathetic, desperate one. I waited until her bedroom light turned off. Then I walked around the side of the house to the trash bins. And yes, I went through them. I never thought I'd become that guy, the one rooting through someone's garbage like a raccoon in human skin. But I was done playing the fool. I was done waiting for her version of the truth. If there was something hidden, I was going to find it. And I did. In the bottom of a white plastic kitchen bag were 2 things that made my chest go tight. A rejected loan application from a local bank, and an envelope with my name on it, unopened. My name. My old address. Postmarked 4 months ago. She had written to me before Grady started asking. Before Cal left. And I had never received it because I had moved. The letter inside was short, but what it said hit harder than any of the lies she'd confessed to my face. Marshall, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I'm drowning. I've made so many mistakes. I can't fix them all. I need help, not for Grady, but for me. Please don't shut this door forever. I don't have anyone else left who knows the real me. So there it was. It wasn't about Grady. It never had been. She hadn't reached out because of some noble sense of responsibility or because our son, yes, I still called him that in my head, needed closure. She reached out because she needed something, because her life was unraveling. And in the midst of that unraveling, I had become convenient again. That realization hurt worse than the betrayal, because I had started to believe just a little that maybe this was about reconnecting with Grady, that maybe something good could still come from the wreckage. But no, I was her backup plan. The man she kept in her back pocket for when the others failed. The one who would always show up if she just pulled the right emotional string. I walked away from her house that night feeling sick. Sick with disappointment. Sick with memory. Sick with shame that I had let her inside my mind again. But the worst part? I wasn't done. Because no matter how much I hated her, no matter how many lies she told, there was still one thing she had that I couldn't ignore. Grady. And I had to decide, once and for all, if I could be in his life without letting her pull me back into the fire. I didn't sleep the night I found her letter in the trash. My mind kept looping between anger and exhaustion, betrayal and heartbreak. But beneath all of that, there was something quieter, something harder to admit. I still wanted to be there for Grady. I still wanted to be his dad, even if nothing else about my connection to Delaney felt real anymore. The next morning, I called her. I told her to meet me at the park, the same one where I'd first seen Grady again. She hesitated, maybe because she knew I'd figured her out, but eventually she agreed. I told her to come alone. When she arrived, I didn't waste time. I handed her the unopened letter she'd written months ago. "I found this," I said flatly. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. Her eyes dropped. She nodded. "You weren't supposed to read that. Not like this." "I know," I said, "but I'm glad I did." She looked up, puzzled. "Because for the first time," I continued, "I'm not angry anymore. I'm not confused. You did what you did. And I let you. I let myself believe in a version of us that never existed. But I don't want anything from you, Delaney. Not your guilt, not your stories, not your apologies." I took a deep breath. "I just want my time with him." She nodded slowly. "You can have that. I won't get in the way." She meant it. For once, I believed her. Later that afternoon, I picked Grady up. Just the two of us. No drama. No secrets. We went for pancakes at a place I used to take him when he was still in a booster seat. He ordered the same thing, chocolate chip with extra syrup. I didn't know if he remembered, or if it was just coincidence, but it felt like the universe giving me a second chance. Halfway through the meal, he looked up at me, syrup on his cheek, and asked, "Can I still call you Dad?" I nearly choked. "Of course," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You always could." He smiled, really smiled, and went back to eating like it was just another Saturday morning, like 6 years hadn't passed, like the space between us hadn't grown dark and messy and painful. And that was the moment I finally let go of the past. I didn't need to fix everything Delaney had broken. I just needed to be present. I'm not perfect. I'm still figuring it out. But now, every Sunday, we meet at that same booth. Pancakes, comic books, laughter, and slowly, piece by piece, I'm rebuilding something real. Not based on blood or lies, but on choice, on showing up. I might not be the man I used to be, but I'm finally becoming the dad he chooses to see. Thank you for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. What part of Marshall's journey hit you the hardest? And have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone who wasn't related by blood, but felt like family? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that healing isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. See you in the next story.